Расцветали яблони. Расцветали яблони и груши, поплыли. Туманы над рекой, выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий. Берег на крутой. Выходила песню заводила про степного сизого горла. Про того, которого любила, про того, чьи письма берегла. Он вспомнит девушку простую, пусть услышит как она поет, пусть он землю перешет родную, а любовь, Катюша,
Ah, Blitzkrieg, the tactical dream scenario of Germany's favorite villain. Ah, Blitzkrieg, the tactical dream scenario of Germany's favorite villainous mustache enthusiast. Adolf Hitler. You know, the guy who looked at World War I trench warfare and thought, how can we make the new war go faster and even more terrifying? Apparently, a guy called Heinz Guderian claimed to have the answer. Storm in like a boss with fast-moving tanks, screaming Stuka dive bombers and artillery while everybody chats over with fast-moving tanks, screaming Stuka dive bombers and artillery while everybody chats over the radio. And just like that, Blitzkrieg was born. Combining speed, firepower, and the audacity of a drunken dare, or a meth head. But we will come to that later. Let's set the scene. It's 1939, and one of the countries in Europe that was just minding its own business. It's 1939. And one of the countries in Europe that was just minding its own business was Poland. A place that had mostly psycho-wacko dictators as neighbours. Speaking of red flags, I'm sure the swastika and Soviet banner were among them. Suddenly, Poland found itself hosting a Blitzkrieg beta test. And right from the start, things turned into chaos for the Polish army. The Luftwaffe was bombing cities and railways. Cutting off Polish frontline forces and generally making things very uncomfortable for everyone below. Meanwhile, panzer divisions rolled through the countryside, bypassing strongholds with high speed like it was all a scene from The Fast and the Furious. Get it? Okay. Then on September the 17th, the Soviet Union crashed the party from the east. Because why let Hitler have all the fun? After the swift conquest of Poland, the war shifted gears into what's known as the Sitzkrieg, or as it's cheekily translated, the sitting on your butt war. While the French fortified their borders and waited for something to happen, the Germans were anything but idle. They used this lull to finalize invasion plans for Denmark and Norway. The butt-sitting phase officially ended when Germany steamrolled Denmark in just a few hours. Clearly, those Panzer boys were on a tight schedule. Norway, however, proved to be a trickier nut to crack, thanks to a pesky little thing called the Royal Navy, and the fact that Norway is, well, kind of massive and covered in snow. Perhaps a bad omen for what lay ahead. By now, the German armoured convoy had reached its next destination, France and the Low Countries. The French, feeling pretty confident, had constructed a supposedly impenetrable defensive marvel known as the Maginot Line. It was like building a massive wall to keep out burglars, but forgetting to lock the back door. Predictably, the Germans didn't bother with the front. Instead, they strolled right through the Ardennes forest, a region the French assumed was too dense for tanks. Turns out the Germans were basically saying, "Hold my schnitzel." For tanks. Turns out the Germans were basically saying, "Hold my schnitzel."
Держи мой шницель.
In addition to schnitzels, German soldiers were also supplied with Pervitin. As it turns out, Blitzkrieg wasn't just about tanks and tactics. It was about troops blitzed out of their minds on methamphetamine. It wasn't just about German soldiers were also supplied with Pervitin. As it turns out, Blitzkrieg wasn't just about tanks and tactics. It was about troops blitzed out of their minds on methamphetamine.
Метамфетамина.
Now, if you're struggling to imagine what an invasion led by a meth-fueled Nazi horde in armoured vehicles looks like, well, let me paint that picture for you. Auf der Heide.
Auf der Heide blüht ein kleines Blümelein und das heißt Erika. Heißt von 100.000 kleinen Bienelein. Vater blüht Erika, Blümelein und das heißt Erika.
That happened. This was apparently the German interpretation of a Tour de France, with the panzer divisions reaching the outskirts of Dunkirk. That happened. This was apparently the German interpretation of a Tour de France, with the panzer divisions reaching the outskirts of Dunkirk in just 2 weeks. For reasons still debated, Hitler then decided to call a halt to his tanks and let the Luftwaffe finish the job. Part of the delay was likely because Hermann Göring, eager to prove his worth, wanted to claim some glory. Sadly, he proved to be far better at clearing out buffets. Part of the delay was likely because Hermann Göring eager to prove his worth, wanted to claim some glory. Sadly, he proved to be far better at clearing out buffets than winning battles. Hermann Göring, eager to prove his worth, wanted to claim some glory. Sadly, he proved to be far better at clearing out buffets than winning battles. Anyway, the Luftwaffe failed to wipe out around 400,000 British and French troops on the beaches, and most of them managed to hop on boats and float off to England. Despite the Luftwaffe's fuck-up at Dunkirk, the Germans still demonstrated the overwhelming power of their Blitzkrieg doctrine. In less than a week, they had occupied the Netherlands, bombed the Dutch city of Rotterdam to rubble, and forced Luxembourg to surrender in just 12 hours. Ouch. Rubble and forced Luxembourg to surrender in just 12 hours. Ouch. What followed was the Battle of Britain, where Göring yet again showed the world he was more obese than capable. His Stuka dive bombers performed great during the invasion of France, but high in the skies above Britain, surrounded by Spitfires and Hurricanes, not so much. At this point, Hitler focused his attention on the east. In June 1941, Germany decided to take its lightning war to a whole new level with Operation Barbarossa, the biggest road trip in history. This was a blitzkrieg campaign on steroids, or methamphetamine, you pick. Tanks were rolling through the Soviet defenses and planes were bombing Soviet positions into oblivion. By the end of summer 1941, the Germans were moving fast and the Red Army was scrambling to keep up. But then the Germans got introduced to Rasputitsa, aka the mud season. This quagmire was a far cry from rally racing through the green fields of northern France. By November, the Russian winter set in and pretty much screwed up the entire plan of the Wehrmacht to capture Moscow. When spring arrived and most German soldiers finished defrosting their testicles, the army once again blitzed their way. German soldiers finished defrosting their testicles. The army once again blitzed their way through Soviet defense lines toward the Caucasus and the city of Stalingrad. After months of maintaining the initiative. Hitler thought it would be cool to capture the city of Stalingrad because it bore Stalin's name. Well, certainly it would end up being a lot cooler than anticipated. The Battle of Stalingrad quickly stripped the Germans of every tactical advantage they had. No more fast tank maneuvers and no more close air support. Just an endless maze of destroyed buildings packed with Russian snipers. Another Russian winter. There was no Russian winter to... sorry about that. Another Russian winter set in and turned many Nazi soldiers into ice sculptures. A setback. To make matters worse, the Soviet army was about to show the world they would be the ultimate blitzkrieg bastards. Two giant armies pierced through the German flanks and encircled Germany's 6th Army, still holding out in the city. Through the German flanks and encircled Germany's 6th Army. Still holding out in the city. With no fuel for their tanks, no food for their soldiers, and zero protection against the cold, the 6th Army was doomed and ultimately surrendered to the Russians. Despite all that, the days of blitzkrieg were not over for the Germans. They would still carry out fast-moving tank maneuvers, just more in the direction of Berlin.
"427 days into what should have been a 30-day mission, and it's..."
Gen Z is drinking less alcohol than every other generation on Earth right now, and it's having major repercussions. Since when did Gen Z become the designated driver of society?
North Korea is one of the most dangerous.
If you watch this entire video, you'll know exactly how to learn Russian to fluency so that one day, inshallah, you'll be able to speak the language like a native speaker from Kazakhstan. And And I know what you're all thinking. How on earth could this glupy Amerikanец possibly teach me all I need to know to learn Russian in just 5 minutes? He's not qualified to teach. Но на самом деле я слишком квалифицирован по 3 причинам. Первая причина. I speak Russian fluently at an intermediate level. Вторая причина. The Taylor Swift of Russia, aka Dora, slid into my DMs and gave me a virtual hug. Третья причина. Real Russians know that I'm my DMs and gave me a virtual hug. Третья причина. Real Russians know that I'm the best Russian speaker in the universe.
Уй, всем привет, с вами Рома, no fuckers, и вы, наверное...
Russian speaker in the universe.
Уй, всем привет, с вами Рома, no fuckers, и вы, наверное, знаете, что я самый русский из всех русских. И я хочу сказать, что языковой симп, наверное, говорит на русском лучше, чем я. It's like he's a super native speaker or something. Which is precisely why you have 72 hours to delete your channel. Or else I'm coming for you.
Now you should fully trust me. So unbuckle your seatbelt and slam the gas because давайте начнем. Step 1. Admit defeat. Russian is the hardest language in the universe. Блин, русский сложнее китайского. No one, not even natives, can explain how their language works, and that's why we're gonna take a Russian is the hardest language in the universe. Блин, русский сложнее китайского. No one, not even natives, can explain how their language works, and that's why we're gonna take a ton of shortcuts. So look in the mirror and repeat the words, I am gonna fail, out loud and make sure you believe it. Step 2, get into a Russian-speaking headspace. You are what you eat, so in order to think like a Russian, you need to eat like a Russian. I know it's from Ukraine, but borscht is very popular in Russia. I have my own borscht recipe, which consists of Hawaiian punch, red jello, a scoop of vanilla ice cream, and then I garnish it with a little grass. Then I wash it down with Russian pelmeni. They're just little dumplings, and you can put anything inside of them and then nuke them to perfection. Now eat that shit.
Серьезно, это поможет тебе быстрее выучить язык.
Step 4. Don't learn the alphabet. Russian is written in the Cyrillic alphabet.
Язык.
Shit.
Серьезно, это поможет тебе быстрее выучить язык.
Step 4. Don't learn the alphabet. Russian is written in the Cyrillic alphabet, which is actually not the writing system used in the United States. So you've got to learn it. Or do you? Reading is for beta males. Are you really gonna read Dostoevsky? More like Dost a waste of time ski. Or достопримечательности. So these letters can all go иди нахуй. Except for my favorite letter, which makes the sound. Do not be like me. After staring at Cyrillic for hours every day, my right eye got stuck out to the side. Один глаз на вас, другой на Кавказ. Step 5. Learn some words. The first word you should learn in every language is hello. In Russian, hello is здравствуйте. It's way too long and complex, and for some reason, it starts with the letter 3. But luckily, a lot of words are the same in American and Russian, so you should start with those as they're easy to remember and super important anyway. Here are the 3 most important ones. Business lady is business lady. Toaster is toaster. And gay is gay. Step 6. Don't learn the grammar. This is a pronoun. It's pronounced T, and it means you. T is an important word that you will say all the time. However, due to Russian's cringe case system, this word has 12 different forms. We're Americans. Our brains can't even understand meters, so how on earth are we supposed to understand cases? So just use the undeclined, standard nominative dictionary form of every word in every context. Я люблю ты, я хочу быть с ти, я даю ты это. And that's it for grammar. If you follow these tips, you'll sound like a complete idiot, but Russians might understand you every now and then. Step 7. Fake it. 90% of everything that comes out of Russian speakers' mouths are just filler words. I'm serious, I've never heard another language like this. According to my calculations, if you learn just 6 of these common fillers, you'll technically be speaking just like a native Russian. They are бля, ну, типа, скажем, в общем, and впля. Ну, типа, скажем, в общем, and в принципе. Burn these into your mind. I'll show you an example in a bit. Бля, ну, типа, скажем, в общем, в принципе. Step 8. Full immersion. Now that you have all that knowledge, it's time to dive legs first into the language, which will be pretty easy to naturally absorb using my secret immersion method. Obviously, it's hard to simply move to a Russian-speaking country, and even though there are some places dominated by Russian in the USA, like Brighton Beach, my method requires no movement. All you have to do is slap on a VPN in a location close to Russian speakers and download Counter-Strike. Can you think of a more iconic part of Russian culture than Counter-Strike? Load into a game and let the input hit you like the collapse of the Soviet Union hit the world.
Тостер? Бизнес-леди, в общем,
типа...
скажем. Ну, бля.
Ну, типа...
Тостер, в общем.
Ну, типа, блин.
Ну, типа, да.
Бизнес-леди.
Типа...
You see, they're just using the filler words. But when the action starts, things start to change.
Бля, ебаный ты идиот.
Зачем ты вот это все делаешь? Все, блядь, из-за тебя, ебаный ты пиндос.
Ебаный в конце, блядь. Пошли.
Почему никто не рашит Б? Вы что, блядь, дебилы ебаные? Идите на Б нахуй, я сказал, блядь.
And there you have it. If you follow this short guide, you'll speak Russian fluently in no time.
Hey, I heard you're learning Russian. Why'd you choose Russian?
Well, I like borscht, and I want to eat it with bears.
You mean like grizzly bears that could kill and eat you?
No, I mean hairy men.
That's great! Can you say something in Russian for me?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not that good yet.
Oh, come on, just one simple sentence.
Well, okay, I guess. Русский войни корабль. Иди нахуй. Wait, why'd you turn around?
Я президент Российской Федерации, блядь.
Oh, Vladdy.
Я президент Российской Федерации, бля. Я президент Российской Федерации, бля.
Turn around.
Я президент Российской Федерации, блядь.
Oh, Vladdy Daddy! Wait, you're a war criminal! Get out of my house!
Я тебя ненавижу.
Oh, Vladdy Daddy! Wait, you're a war criminal! Get out of my house!
Я тебя ненавижу.
Всем огромный привет и добро пожаловать. Всем огромный привет и добро пожаловать на мой канал. Для тех, кто не знает, меня зовут Language. Я из США и я изучаю русский. Сегодня я расскажу вам о том, почему я ненавижу русский язык. Ну, конечно же, вы уже знаете, что я так сильно люблю русский, но в то же время, блядь, it is extremely frustrating. You see, the other day I was minding my own business, doing my usual language learning routine when I realized that it would be a great idea to practice speaking with some natives. So I found a local Russian and I began to speak with him. And all was good until I made one fatal mistake.
Да, у меня много другов. Что не так, чувак? Ну, что ты сказал, блядь?
Б твердый знак. Взял.
Ну,
I made one fatal mistake.
да, у меня много другов. Что не так, чувак? Ну, что ты сказал, блядь? Ну, я... Что не так, чувак? Ну, что ты сказал, блядь? Ну, я сказал, что у меня много другов.
It took me a moment to figure out what I did wrong, but when I realized the mistake I made, I shitted in my brand new underpants. I'll explain the mistake in a second. I was so embarrassed and I was pissed off, so I needed to escape my dark thoughts. I began to daydream of a long time before I ever spoke Russian, way before I even knew that other languages existed. It was nice. Back then, I had never even seen a uy before, and the crab-looking hadn't even stopped my nightmares yet. So you're probably wondering, what did I do wrong? Well, you see, Russian has something really cringe called cases, which means that each noun can take up to 12 forms based on what its role is in a sentence. The word for friend in Russian is drug, and these are all of the forms that the word drug can take in different situations. Wow, there are a ton of them. So when I said,
Да, у меня много...
before I said the word friend, my only two functioning brain cells after learning Danish had to find the right variant of drug for the occasion.
So friend is drug, and it is a lot of drug, and since it's a lot of something, we gotta put drug in the plural genitive form. Da and drug ends in g, and word that end in g in plural genitive it add ov. It is drugov.
Drugov.
You see, my brain cells forgot that the word drug is one of the bajillion irregular nouns in the language, so I declinated it wrong. For some magical ass, Rasputin ass, hocus pocus, black magic ass reason, the word drug actually changes to druzier in this context. And this crap happens all the time, as you gotta memorize the dozens or so forms of every noun and then be able to pull them out of your hiney on command. But that's if you can even remember the base words in the language, because they're all crazy too. Some words are shorter than that British woman's term as Prime Minister of England. Like, if you put the backwards R and the crab-looking monster together, you get the word yad, which means poison. It's just two goofy-ass letters kissing each other. And some words are as long as continental chicken fry-looking chili. Like, if you grab a crab and then put 50 random letters after it, you get достопримечательность, which means an attraction, like a tourist site or something. It shouldn't be legal for words to be that long, and I have a right eye that frequently runs off to Narnia, so half the time I don't know if I'm hallucinating or just reading Russian. Also, verbs are entirely broken in this language. The developers should not have released this language without beta testing the verbs first. Take the verb говорить, for example, which means to speak. It would be chill if they had just left it at that, but the devs added a crap ton of prefixes you can attach on verbs to make them mean completely different things. Говорить can change to заговорить, which means to start speaking. It can become договорить, which means to finish speaking. Иди нахуй говорить, which means to speak kindly. Наговорить, which means to say too much, and there's like 10 more. The worst part is that these prefixes aren't even consistent, and they can mean different things when attached to different verbs. Uy. Oh, another thing to mention is the stupid, incomprehensible, illegal cursive writing system in Russian. Look at it. How can anyone read that? And when you get into the specifics, it gets even crazier. Why does the lowercase crab turn into this? It looks like a G in the American alphabet. Why does the lowercase t look like an M? And this one just looks inappropriate. It bothers me a lot. But with all that slander being said about the language, nothing beats the amazing feeling of speaking Russian for a few minutes without making any mistakes. It feels better than any earthly pleasure, and although difficult, it is not impossible. In summary, I love the Russian language, but sometimes it makes me want to grab a bat and put humongous holes in my walls, and even uninstall Duolingo. Thank you for listening to my rant. Всем иди нахуй. Пока.
Всем огромный привет и добро. Добро пожаловать на мой канал. Для тех, кто не знает, меня зовут Language.